The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon from Germany, dear colleagues. My name is Jorge Leiva from INADO, and together with my colleague Francisca, I welcome every participant to this webinar. We also welcome and thank our speakers today, John Travis, Senior Research Scientist, and Brian Jordan, Technical Manager of the Certified for Sport program at NSF. As you all know, NSF is a partner organization of INADO. We're very happy to have this webinar today. The presentation will be divided in two parts. First, John will guide us through the science behind third-party supplement testing, and he also will speak to us about what we can learn from recent research science. The second part, Brian will go more in detail to NSF's approach to supplement certification and why is it important for athletes. Of course, supplements and supplement contamination remains a high risk for athletes worldwide. Before we begin with the webinar, here are just a few housekeeping matters. Today's webinar is scheduled for 1 hour. We will try to stick to that time frame, but we will also give some flexibility if there are questions from the audience that require us to do so. At the end of the presentation, there will be enough opportunity for questions and answers. You will have the chance to submit any question using the question pane of your control panel. You have that option through the entire webinar. So please, I invite everyone to send questions to us. Thank you all who submitted questions in advance. Francisca will gather those questions and read them for the speakers today. Also, the session will be recorded. If any of our members missed the chance to join today, they will have the opportunity to go into our website and download the recording. If you have problems finding the recording, just let us know. Thank you all thank you especially to the participants joining from very distant locations in Australia or Canada. And thank you all to our friends of international federations, WADA, and non-members of INADO for joining today, also from research institutions. So I think we are ready to go, and then I will pass the microphone to John. John, you should have received.
I have received.
You need to, now we see your presentation. Go ahead.
Very good. Good morning, folks. This is John Travis here from NSF International. I'm going to speak on the testing part of the science behind sports supplementation and certification. So a little bit about myself. I've been at NSF for 25 years now. 20 years of it, I have been working in dietary supplements, doing analytical chemistry techniques, tested a lot of different supplements, both for contaminants like the prohibited substances, pesticides. I've done label claim testing where one must accurately measure what's in a product, for instance, vitamin A content, tested water. So I've worked on a lot of different projects at NSF, and they graciously allowed me to move forward and do some research on dietary supplements. So that is what I'm going to talk to you about today. Brian's bio is there. Can't pass it to him right now, but you can read it. And you guys, I don't know if we are going to be providing these slides as a handout, but maybe we will. So a little bit about us. Who is NSF International? Pictures below are a couple of our facilities. The one on the right is our facility in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The facility on the left is our facility in Rieda, Wiedenberg, Germany. They both test supplements. The Rieda facility does test only work as far as providing services to folks that are in Europe, testing for prohibited substances. They do a lot of other testing as well. We at NSF are a public health company. We're not for profit, based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We've been in business since 1945, and we were formed by a couple of folks that were, one was the dean of the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. There were some regulators from the state of Ohio, and we were formed out of a need to facilitate interstate commerce. We really began because some vendors of soda fountains were having a difficult time selling their products in different states in the areas because, for instance, the state of, imagine over in wherever you live, you're right near the border, you're making a product, you want to sell it across the other border, but the regulations are different. So you have to make a slightly different product for each of the regions that you want to sell in. Well, that's where we're born. The regulators and the School of Public Health officials got together and created a quality standard for soda fountains that everyone agreed to use, and it facilitated interstate commerce within the United States and birth of NSF. From those inauspicious beginnings, we've moved on to different things like French fryers, deep fryers. We do biohazard cabinets. We do potable water plumbing components. We do direct drinking water additives. And of course, we do dietary supplements. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the research we've done over the years. We started the program for testing just dietary supplements itself for label claims and other contaminants back in 2001. In 2004, we were approached by folks from NFL to create a program to test dietary supplements for prohibited substances in sport. So that was in 2004. 2012 was our first publication. So it took a little while for us to decide we were going to get into the research aspect of it. But this was an intriguing case of how actually DMA came to be in dietary supplements. DMA, as you know, back in like 2010, 2009, there were a lot of adverse analytical findings for this, and a lot of people were sanctioned for DMAA. It was originally studied by the Eli Lilly company, which is based in Indianapolis, Indiana, excuse me, within the States. It was designed to be, the name of the product was called Forthane. It was a nasal decongestant and a spray delivery form, kind of like the Afrins and things of that nature. The gentleman who had created the first supplement, so that Patrick Arnold of Belco fame, as you all know, created this. He had a new supplement for the company he had formed called ErgoPharm called AMP, and DMAA was a secret ingredient. A lot of companies saw that he was making money with his product and jumped on the bandwagon and started manufacturing products themselves. You can see the little the photo of the original publication from the Eli Lilly company down below. And I don't know if everyone's read that paper, but it's really interesting. I don't think they would do things like this. Well, in some of those studies, they anesthetized and euthanized over 100 dogs, and it's just not something we do today, but that's a different comment. Back in 2006, this is a little snippet from a forum. I forget which forum this is. I didn't capture that part of it. But this user Amturanamine outed Patrick Arnold's ErgoPharm and let everyone know what the product was, and hence everyone could copycat and make their new products. But this is what they put out there. And I remember there were some further comments. It's like, why would you do this? And what's going on? But here itself is the picture on the right is actually the Pelargonium species of geranium that DMAA was allegedly derived from. But if as you can see, he was seeking quotes for DMAA back in, what's that, May 2005, and he was seeking as a white odorless power as a hydrochloride salt, so it make it easy to manufacture. DMAA itself, if it's a free base, it's a somewhat viscous liquid. It has a terrible, terrible aroma. It's not very appetizing at all. I don't know anyone who would actually want to consume DMAA if it was in its free base form, but nonetheless, he was seeking he was seeking orders for ability to manufacture this product back in 2005. And what had happened is he had seized upon this paper by Ping, and I'm sure you all know the story, but it was a poorly written paper. It was published in a technical journal in China, and it was not translated in English. In fact, we had one of our ladies at NSF did a translation for us. She's from China and spoke fluent Mandarin. But anyway, she said that there were a lot of errors in how they had written their Chinese within the paper itself. And if you carefully look at the paper, it lists, and I wish I'd have put it up here, but I didn't, I'm sorry. It lists a table with all the compounds that they said they had found within the geranium oil, and even one of them is a synonym for amphetamine, which would have been amazing, because that would be the only time that I've ever seen, or the first report even, of amphetamine being found in nature, because it's generally recognized that it's a synthetic product. So we decided, we partnered with some folks at the U.S. Department of Defense. Dr. Krista Austin, at the time, they had approached us. They said, "Oh, can we do a study to determine if we purchase some pelargonium and geranium species and some essential oils, see if we can measure and determine if DMA is in there." Now I know we're limited because there are a lot of species of geranium out there. We would be growing the plants within. So we set up a little greenhouse within NSF, and we grew the plants there. But so we're limited by that, so it's not really representative of the entire population. But it gives us a little snapshot to see if it's actually to be synthetically produced by the plant, would we see any at all. So we grew the plants. The picture on the bottom right there is Geranium robertianum, which was, I believe, a company named Iovate out of, I don't think it's based in Canada, sorry, Canadians, but they manufacture products. I recall seeing a patent application by Iovate with the U.S. Patent Office stating that they had created this new method of extracting DMAA out of this geranium species of plant. And, well, this is not the evidence that we saw, but this is, so we actually sent the patent office our publication to refute what their claims were. But when we did our testing on it, we did it by LC10 mass spectrometry. We didn't detect any DMA, obviously, in any of the plant material, nor in essential oils. So we would think that by whatever extraction process that they used, which is generally either cold press or a steam distillation to obtain the essential oils, we essentially did a methylene chloride extraction on the plant product. It would have been similar to, we would expect to see the DMAA within the essential oils, so we could detect it there. And I threw up some items there of what it actually looks like when we're doing the testing, the signals we detect. So my paper is down here, the citation. If anyone wants it, you just contact us whenever, and I can send you a copy of that. Interesting, that was back in, so we did that study, and 2013 was when it was published. It's interesting that even today, just actually in April, there was a supplement manufacturer that sued FDA about their decisions on DMAA as legitimate dietary ingredient within the U.S. And that case has still been ongoing. The manufacturer sued the FDA, then the FDA countersued, and now then they enjoined the cases. I'm not a legal person, so just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But how it's gone is back, I think it was 2014 was the initial seizure, or 2013 was the initial seizure, right after everything happened. But anyway, in 2017, when the U.S. District Courts had issued a summary judgment in favor of the FDA within the United States, and there's been multiple appeals. Just this last April, the last request by the supplement manufacturer was for a rehearing, and the circuit court denied that request. So essentially, all their options have been exhausted, save the appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, which everyone knows that's very unlikely to happen. One, that it's maybe not unlikely that they would want the Supreme Court to hear the case. It's very unlikely that the U.S. Supreme Court would actually take on the case. So it's likely this issue is over within the U.S., but I guess we'll see in the next 6 months whether they decide to move on and take that to the Supreme Court at that point in time. So what that means in the U.S. is that it's been upheld that it's not a legal dietary ingredient, that it's an actual unapproved food additive. Strange regulations and how laws work. I don't know every jurisdiction within the EU how it works, but it would have fallen under the novel food code, and then since it was unapproved novel food, it was illegal within EU as well. And Australia and Canada have also similarly prohibited that as an ingredient. So that was our first research back in 2013. Our latest one that we published was on hygenamine. We have some stats up there. Starting from 2016 to 2018, there have been quite a few, maybe not as many as some of the anabolic steroids, but been quite a few adverse analytical findings based upon hygenamine. So my collaborators, Dr. Peter Cohen and Dr. Bastian Benwies. Peter Cohen works for Harvard. He's a professor at Harvard Medical School. He has a practice at Cambridge Health Institute. And currently, we're not doing any work together because he is on the front lines. He has been tasked with running the ambulatory care clinic for COVID-19 at his Cambridge Health Associates facility. So he is very busy right now. I spoke with him about a week ago, and he was saying he was astonished how little was actually known and how much they had to learn within the past 2-3 months. And he said strikingly that the one thing that they did learn was common amongst them, and he did publish this in JAMA, was common COVID symptoms. One of them was losing the sense of smell. So if any of you folks out there lose your sense of smell and you have some upper respiratory things, I would suggest you go to your doctor. But anyway, I digress on that. So on our study, the objective was to survey products that were available in the U.S. market to see that were labeled to contain hygenamine, or some of it synonyms like nochlorine, or we didn't go into all. Well, I guess we did look at some of the plant species. It's all within the article. But the secondary objective was to report evidence in the peer-reviewed literature describing the pharmacology of hygenamine, how it works. It's had made that absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination, its pharmacokinetics, and try to get all of that information within one peer-reviewed literature document. And tertiary objective, and this is more from my part, was to report on the evidence in the peer-reviewed literature talking about the distribution of hygenamine in nature among the different plant species that can be found. So, and the reason why we wanted to do these things was, well, there are a few reasons. One, there was a great interest to us at NSF because of the adverse analytical findings within the sports community, and we wanted to know how widespread and what was going on in there. And two, to give regulatory bodies a peer-reviewed piece of literature that had all of the information in one spot so they could make decisions, regulatory decisions, whether it was the sporting community on if it was actually an inadvertent doping, the regulatory bodies, if they had products that had just synthetic hegemine instead of hegemine extracted from a plant, or a botanical extract that contained hegemine. I know it's a subtle difference, but there is a large difference with how regulatory bodies look at that. So those were the two main things why we actually had embarked on this research. And that hegemine itself is a very interesting structure up there, and it can be found in a number of different plants. One of the plants that it was reported in was aconite, which, I mean, if you don't know, is a poisonous plant. So if people are selling aconite root, it has to be processed in a certain way to eliminate the co-extraction of the different alkaloids that are toxic within the plant. And well, if they're looking to extract it for its hegemine content, and they're trying to reduce or eliminate the other alkaloids, that would be very similar. It would be very difficult for them to do because of the similarity in structures between hegemine and the other alkaloids. So within the research project, what we did is we surveyed. I think we originally found 28, 29 products that were labeled to contain hegemine or a synonym of hegemine. When we went to order some of the products, they're either discontinued or unavailable, or the manufacturer changed the formulation. So the products I received, we ended up receiving 24 of the original 28 or 29 that we had identified. And we were kind of astonished at how the products are labeled. Only 5 of them listed specific amounts of hegemine. A lot of them put hegemine or hegemine. They put parentheses some botanical name like Numba nucifera, which is a lotus flower down there in the bottom right. But 5 of them did put did label how much hegemine they placed in the product. Unsurprisingly, there's not a single one that was even close to being accurate for how much hegemine is in there. Then even less surprisingly, 4 of the products actually contain no hegemine. We measured and we extrapolated it back to on a daily dose, and the largest dose that one would receive would be 62 milligrams on a serving. Our results of the test, we did the testing here in Ann Arbor, Bastian's group, and the Netherlands confirmed. So our data was pretty tight on what we saw, and it's all right there. If anyone wishes a copy of that, please reach out to us, and I have my office copy that I can Google and share. So those are 2 of the research projects that we have done. We've done other research projects over the years too. We did some work on the craze product, that's the N-alpha diethylphenylethylamine. We did some work on dimethylbutamine, which was alleged to come from some Puchung tea. Was there one more in there? Oh, we did some work with folks out of the National Center for Natural Products Research in Oxford, Mississippi at Ole Miss on oxalophilin. We have some current research. We're looking at another stimulant type ingredient, and same kind of style where we search for all the products that we find in the U.S. market based upon the name of this ingredient. And this one's a little bit different in that we are doing a target analysis for that specific ingredient, or that specific, I'm calling ingredient specific prohibited substance. That's really what it is. Then we're also doing untargeted analysis to see what else we can determine it's in there. Now, we're not doing super in depth on untargeted. We're taking the major contributors of signal within the different products. I'm looking at, when I did my untargeted part, I'm looking at the top 20 peaks to see, okay, are these in the product? Are these not in the product? Are these of interest? Are these what we would consider not a dietary ingredient here in the States? So I put down there, let folks that are other analytical chemists see if you can guess what compound that is based upon those signals there. That's a little quiz. And by the way, the compounds that are depicted by that those graphs are not the ones we are doing. It's not the one, the main compound we're doing research on. So future research, where we're going. I talked with our main, Peter and I were talking, we were discussing revisiting some of these substances that we reported on before and trying to see if our publications had impacted its prevalence within the market. Looking to see if people are still selling it out there, or if they've changed their formulas and taking it out, or if they change their formulas or not even change their formulas, just change their label and still left the ingredient in. So the goal on that would be to purchase the products that we had originally done and then do an additional search to see if there are new products in the market. Another thing that we're looking at within NSF itself is there's not a lot of information on statistical models for qualitative method validation. So one thing I'm excited about this. I just got on, and this is the nerd in me, the AOAC International, which is a body, an organization of analytical chemists and microbiologists and folks like that, like-minded folks like that. And what they do is they bring people together to validate analytical methods for food and supplement and water safety. So they are they're similar where NSF creates a standard, a quality standard for a product, but they create not a quality standard, but they bring experts together to review analytical methods and to have them validated. So everyone is using the same methods and know they will get the same result. But anyway, within that, I selected to be on the statistics committee. So I just recently got that. I'm kind of excited because one thing I've wanted to do for a while now and I've been working on is statistical models for validating qualitative methods. So knowing the probabilities of detection and identification, so that would be like your false negative or false positive probabilities within your world of anti-doping testing. So that's some of the research that we've done over the years and where we want to go in the future. I'm going to try to wrap these next slides up pretty quickly to pass off to my colleague. But some of the test protocols we use in certified sport are slightly different than what we're doing in the research method, the research papers that we published on. So in everyday production work, you folks know the wide variety of chemistries of substances for which the anti-doping labs are screening. I mean, everything from octopamine, which is very, very polar. It actually almost behaves like a Zwitter ion, to things of such a non-polar nature, like delta-9 THC, the acid form of that for marijuana, and everything in between. So really, the substances for which we want to screen really dictates how we do this. So we have 4 different extraction methods for all the protocols we use. We try to, within them, address each of the chemistries that are concerned. We try to eliminate co-extraction of irrelevant test material or compounds that are in test materials. We have 2 GCMS methods that we run. They're really GC triple quads. One's for anabolic steroids. The other one's for GHB. Our partners, or one of our stakeholders, Major League Baseball, they have GHB within their program, and they are interested in doing that. So I know it's less interesting for the water code folks, but there is some reasons behind that. We do 6 LC triple quad methods for everything else, from SARMs to carbon, which is PPAR, to diuretics, some of the the anabolic steroids that are not amenable to GCMS. We have the stimulants there as well. We do one high-res method, and that's a photo on the right of our LCF, our high-res instrument, for the growth hormone releasing peptides. So experiences from 15 plus years of testing is active supplements are complex. There's no bones about that. Almost every well, every product seems to be different. One protein powder from one brand, when we test it, seems to behave differently from a protein powder from another brand. And the source of protein seems to impact it. Protein powders we thought would be really complicated. Actually, some of the easier matrices to test. Some of the more difficult ones you think would be that are some of the more complex ones to test are actually multivitamins. Think about it, B vitamins like vitamin B6, vitamin B2, thiamine, pyridoxine, all of those. They're similar in structure. They have the same kinds of benzyl rings and alkaloid structures as stimulants. So they get co-active stimulants. They interfere more in signal suppression, but that's some of the things we learned over the year. What we wanted to do, we tested out different methods over the years and trying to find a way to do a general screening method for all substances. And there are just so many trade-offs when you do that on sensitivity. If you do a general screen, you can get things that are moderately polar, but then you lose the things that are very polar, like acopamine and pentylene tetrazole, and you lose the things that are very non-polar, like THC, the cannabinoid mimetics like the JWH compounds that are out there, some of the more polar anabolic steroids or non-polar anabolic steroids you lose. We've also learned that hydrophilic compounds are very challenging. Things that like octopamine, there's mentioning, and oxaliprene, I have structures for down there. It's just so much more challenging because during the extraction of supplements, there are a lot of other substances that have similar structures and similar chromatographic retention times, and just everything comes off the column, and it's suppression. If you're working with a trap, like an Orbitrap type instrument, compounds that have low abundance, and I'm battling on, but anyway, it just really impacts what you can do. So with that, I am going to pass the baton to my colleague Brian Jordan, and he's going to speak in depth about how we actually operate our certified support program.
Brian, we see now your screen. Can you go? You need to go to presentation mode. Perfect. Now we see your screen. Thank you, John. Now we pass over to Brian. Brian, you have the task to close the presentation and try to, as much as possible, close before the hour. That'll be good so that we can have some time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, John. Yeah, so John mentioned my background just real quick. I spent majority of my career as a strength conditioning coach, majority of that also being in Major League Baseball. Prior to coming to NSF, I've been at NSF for over 4 years now, and been fortunate to travel a lot and educate on the Certified for Sport program. I was actually, as a practitioner, my first exposure to the Certified for Sport program was back when it originated, as John mentioned earlier. So what is the Certified for Sport program? NSF Certified for Sport program is an independent third-party certification program of dietary supplements, functional foods, and beverages. Now, the Certified for Sport certification program helps athletes, coaches, healthcare practitioners make educated decisions and avoid potentially harmful ingredients in athletic banned substances when choosing supplements. So a little bit about Certified for Sport program in NSF International. For John covered it a little bit, but I want to make sure that everyone understands kind of the origination of the Certified for Sport program. So back in the early 2000s, many of you may remember there were many concerns about dietary supplements. Back in 1994 in the United States, DSHEA had passed, which is legislation for the regulation of dietary supplements. And so dietary supplements exploded, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Many athletes were using, at that time, beginning to use dietary supplements. Many athletes also were, being approached by these manufacturers and brands to have sponsorships. So I'm sure many of you on this also remember one of the first surveys that were ever done by the IOC was on contaminated dietary supplements. Found that it was an alarming amount of contamination in these products. So at that time, early 2000s, NSF wrote, as a standard writing body, wrote the first and only ANSI accredited standard for dietary supplements, the NSF ANSI 173. And that was done through the standard writing process, which is a consensus, is a joint standard. So that means that there's industry representation, there are research representation, scientists, regulatory. So it's a balanced joint committee that oversees the development of the standard. So it's not one side or the other. It's they come to an agreement on what's the best way forward with a standard. So NSF wrote that in the early 2000s, and then as John mentioned, the Certified for Sport program blossomed after that. With the NFL and ML, Major League Baseball, their interest in having the ability to have these products tested for banned substances, that they could allow their athletes or allow options for their athletes, if they're going to consume dietary supplements, to consume something that had been tested and was didn't have banned substances in the products. So with the history of the Certified for Sport program, I now want to dive into the nuts and bolts of this program, and there's really four major components. The first component is the GMP audit. The second is the review of the products themselves and the company and brand. The third component of the certification program is the contents tested. And then the last component is the banned substance testing itself. So for the first one, the GMP audit. So GMP, as you may know, stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. NSF conducts 2 audits on site for this GMP audit. So twice annual on-site audit conducted, and the basics of it is that the audit will be conducted in a way that the physical grounds are inspected. Some of the things that play into this is the equipment inspection, the SOPs analysis, quality systems, training records, master manufacturing records. So on site twice annually, our experienced auditors go in and work with these manufacturing facilities to make sure that they are abiding by good manufacturing practices. There's a report that is issued at the end of the audit that lists any kind of major and minor infractions. And then once that audit report is submitted, then the manufacturer has to, if they do have infractions, they have to have corrective actions for those infractions. If there's severe or major infractions, then obviously they don't pass their audit, and therefore they don't get to be registered. This is a requirement. It is the baseline and first step of the Certified for Sport program. It is the most important because, one, it's the first step. Two, it is the beginning of making something that is quality. So the GMP is so important in the beginning of a finished product, having the quality in the end. If there's not good processes in place, there's not practices and implementation of proper procedures, then it's nearly impossible to have a positive outcome or a finished product that's going to be of any kind of quality and safety. So once the manufacturing facility passes their audit, they are listed on the nsf.org website, and they are listed. The next step, once they've have a facility that has passed the GMP registration and is listed, then they can, apply for the Certified for Sport certification as well. So the first step of that process is our toxicologists. We have a lot of toxicologists at NSF that has the duty to review these products. So these products are sent in, per the request of NSF, and the product's formulation is analyzed by our toxicologists. So they have to send in their full formulation, so the proprietary blends and all the other different types of labels and formulations for these products. NSF requires a full, disclosure of what those are to be able to, analyze the product. Our toxicologist looks at the C of A's, obviously, and batch records, to make sure that they have that documentation, and also as it relates to certification of that particular product. There's a label review, obviously verifying the ingredients and safe use levels of the product. So NSF uses a lot of data based off of European, Canadian regulations, as well as the United States, for upper use levels or safe use levels of these ingredients, and verifying that these are, dietary ingredient or they have GRAS status. NSF looks at those sort of things when determining if something is eligible for certification. Another part of the process I want to discuss a little bit is the company review of the product line. So our toxicologists and our project managers look at specific brands that are have come in and applying for certification, making sure that these company product lines don't have banned substances on the label. Some of the other products, we're looking at warning letters for previous warning letters, recalls, and another big component is the USADA Supplement 411 list. There's over 600 products on there. The big thing is we want quality partners, people that come in and want to utilize NSF certification services to be, the good players, the ones that really want to provide, athletes with products that are safe and in quality. The third step is the actual testing of the product. So, as per the standard, NSF will test for heavy metals, pesticides, contaminants, as well as the label verification. So NSF is testing to verify, protein content, testing to verify calories and other ingredients that are in these products as part of the certification program. So that is the label claims portion of the certification. The last component is the final one is the banned substance testing. As John mentioned, his lab and the people at NSF doing so much research and developing methods to test and detect these analytes. There's we now test for 273. We'll be adding more here as this year goes on, and then each year we try to obviously add ones that are new, or continue to develop methods for existing substances that are out there that may be found in dietary supplements, functional foods, and beverages. Once the product, so NSF will request a finished product sample of these products. So they have to come in and finished product sample, finished product bottle, what they plan on, selling or putting it on the marketplace, and we test these products. And then once the test report comes back, our toxicologists will review that, and then we'll determine whether they pass their certification, and then it goes to our quality people that will then, review it and then list the product and the lot for certification listed. So in review, the GMP is the first step, then the review of the company and the product, and then the testing components for the contents, but also the banned substances. So once those are passed, like I said, then the product is eligible to be certified for sport. That specific product, that specific lot is then listed on the nsf.org website, and also the Certified for Sport, the NSF Sport website, as well as the app. This is another way of looking at it. The pyramid, the baseline, the base of the program is the manufacturing of the facility. And as you can see, each step that goes into that process. I'm going to fly along here a little bit as we're getting a little bit short on time, but I do want to cover the Certified for Sport app. So once it's listed, the nice thing is we created an app that is useful for users, practitioners, athletes. It allows them to scan these products that they may have in their hand to see if it's a certified product. We created a ability to look at the label review. The old app, you had to go outside the app to review any of the products labels. That was something very cumbersome for dietitians and others that want to see what's on the label. So the label is in there as well. You can look at, they can look at it and see what is actually in these products to see if that is something that they would want. And then there's share functions, types goals, other bells and whistles, as well as country of sales and package sizes, things like that. There's compare and contrast options. But the app is a great, useful tool for athletes and practitioners to be able to look up certified products, verify products that they're taking are certified. There's over, as you'll see, there's over 1,000 products to look at. So this makes it an easier way of sorting through those, through product types and goals. The website is a mirror of that, just I guess a more in-depth research and information on the NSF Sport website, allows athletes to look into some of the other things that we offer, like research that John has done and been part of, involved in, with some of the dangers, but also a lot of our educational materials, as I'll cover here as well. We also created an infographic, a few years ago. And this infographic is to explain to athletes and just athletes and consumers in general, how to use the app, how to purchase products, where you can find those products. A big component of this is, as some of you may be aware, that teams and practitioners may be buying obviously more than one product. So, and they also have finance departments. They have to have work orders and things like that, purchasing orders for these products. So there's contact information on the app and website as well for these listed products that allow these practitioners to contact and set up a order with these companies, so that the purchasing order, that the requirements in the finance department for some of these teams and organizations allows them the ability to do that. Some program highlights. We have added 75 substances over the past 5 years. As you can tell, John has been very busy, and the team in the lab who developed methods to detect these in products. They have been adding and creating the ability to test as many of these substances. Obviously athletes, it's important to know that these products have been tested for as many substances as there are available in these products. So John and them have done a lot of work there. There's over 1,000 certified for sport products with over 100 plus brands. You know, another highlight is the consensus statement came out last year that was, you know, essential features on third-party certification programs for dietary supplements. This was put out through the current sports medicine reports by the ACSM. That consensus statement was done by USADA, a collaboration of USADA, Major League Baseball, the Department of Defense, UFC, and so that they analyzed all major third-party certification programs to come up with a consensus statement on what they felt was important for athletes and for the third-party certification programs, the features to have. NSF was the only one that has that meets all these essential criteria detailed in that consensus statement. Shortly after that, you know, USADA announced that they were going to recommend the NSF Certified for Sport certification for athletes. The Certified for Sport certification is the only independent third-party certification program recognized by USADA, as I said, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, and Canadian Football League. They only recognize the Certified for Sport program. The Certified for Sport program also, as you may know, is recommended by, you know, many other organizations from INADO to CCES, the NFL, NBA, PGA, LPGA, Ironman, ITF, UFC, NASCAR, drug-free sport. I can go on and on, but that's just a number of those organizations. I know I'm running out of time here, so but I want to talk about the impact on athletes real quick. And you know, as a former athlete and spending majority of my life in athletics, either as an athlete or working with athletes, elite athletes, high-end and amateur athletes, and even my own kids that are teenage and athletes themselves, the wide variety of athletes I've been exposed to. I do know that there is a desire for athletes to find, obviously, an edge, as everyone knows, but there's also a desire for them. They look at dietary supplements as a way of recovering, of building, and also competing. So that isn't going away. Has only, you know, grown over the past, you know, 20, 30, 40 years. And the big thing is identifying the fact that how can you provide safer options? In my opinion, you know, it does a disservice to athletes, and my exposure to athletes, they don't receive it well when they're told, obviously, that they shouldn't do something. So some of the better approaches has been to provide them with options, educate them, and give them options to walk beside them with this with dietary supplements. So, you know, the third-party certification program allows for athletes to have tested products. It allows them to, if they do, you know, decide to take dietary supplement, there's options there that are safer. I think there's a big opportunity also for dialogue and communication around, you know, sports supplements, you know, training, competing, and nutrition. When they do, you know, ask about, you know, dietary supplements, things like that, there's an opportunity to dive into their sleeping habits, their training, and as well as their nutrition. So there's a great opportunity there for communication, as opposed to, you know, them looking on the internet for the things that they think they need or information that they think they also want. So it's important to provide options and information and work with them on that. You know, reduction of confusion of the athletes is always important. There's obviously athletes from all over the world with different backgrounds, different abilities, obviously, in different languages. So the big part of identifying, you know, a mark, a certification program, things like that, it reduces confusion for athletes. They know in a lot of these programs, in a lot of these organizations, to look for, you know, certified products, look for, you know, certain marks, And so it allows them to make better decisions easier without being confused as to what's out there. Their questions and stuff can go back to the practitioners and others that can provide them with information around, their nutrition and stuff like that, but there's less confusion. And then, a big part of it is protecting the athlete's well-being and health. Obviously these, as you heard from John, of how many of these products are contaminated, the type of contaminations that are out there, and that's not even including the heavy metals, pesticides, and other contaminants that can be in these products. As a competing athlete, a high-end athlete, or even just a general consumer, knowing that they don't contain these things are important. There are health concerns, obviously, if you're taking drugs for health-related reasons. There's a drug interaction that is possible with some of these contaminations. So, as a athlete, having that peace of mind and also protecting athletes from themselves and consuming some of these contaminated products is an important, I think, way of looking at this, an important focus with dietary supplements, functional foods. Educational materials, we have provided, we've developed these educational materials for athletes and practitioners to understand how to use the app, what about the Certified for Sport program. These infographics are in English and Spanish, but we are developing more and more languages, like I said, because there's a lot of different athletes with different backgrounds, different languages, cultures that need this information and need to be provided the opportunity to understand these things. So we're developing more and more of these as time goes on. In summary, NSF has, as you heard, has been a global leader in public health and safety for over 75 years, and the NSF Certified for Sport program, continues to help global athletes and coaches, practitioners make educated decisions and mitigate the risk when choosing sports supplements. That is it. I thank you. I thank Jorge and INADO, Francisca. Thank you all for the opportunity, and we'll open up for questions, and this is our contact information as well.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Brian, for this interesting perspective from your company and from the work you have done with regards to supplements. I think we could talk about supplements and the risk associated with supplements for a much more long time. But for today, we are going to ask just a very limited number of questions in the sake of time. I personally thought it was very interesting to hear from John about the products that were found in the United States that contain hygienamine, and hearing and learning that many of those products are incorrectly labeled. I think that's also a warning for all anti-doping organizations. I know that among the audience there are real scientists, so please, you see there John's email. If you want to ask him any question, please do so. The other question that I have here is, we've seen in the past, or we've seen reports that the use of supplements has grown over the last years considerably. Do you think, it's a question for either one of you, do you think that the use of educational materials, the awareness of athletes has also grown in that time in the same amount, to the same level? Or do you think that athletes are using these products but are not keeping up with the information that they should know about it?
I'll jump in real quick on this, Jorge. I would say that I'd say yes to all of it. I would say that there are conscious efforts to increase education with athletes. There are dietitians, there are practitioners, doctors, physios, others that are providing education around dietary supplements. But I also know that there's also the have-nots, which are athletes that are very much on their own, that are seeking out information on the internet. And that is, there's more information, I think, available because of the ease of access of information, but I don't think it's as concentrated as it needs to be. I think there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of information that is not, correct, that is not practical, that is not, a concentrated, effort to educate athletes, as well as, like I said before, educate them, but also providing options and also walking alongside them, with a relationship of understanding, where they're at in their life and the decisions that they're making. And not all athletes have that available to them. So I think there's different ways, different approaches that can be done, whether that's, through, face-to-face interactions, whether it's to materials, videos, things like that. I think there's a lot of different ways, but I think the messaging needs to be agreed upon to some degree, just a baseline, and it allows people to branch off from there. But I think there's a very wide discrepancies with those who have and those who have not had that information.
All right, thank you, Brian. I think, I know some of our participants today need to leave or are starting to leave. Thank you all for staying with us until this point, but we will ask another 2 questions more that we received. So Francisca?
Yes, maybe the question fits a little bit to the last one or to your answer, Brian. So maybe it's also a very European question. So bearing in mind the UNESCO Convention, Article 10, which is about, which are the operational guidelines for education and public awareness, do you have, or NSF has, specific recommendations for maybe for public authority in order to help improving the situation regarding contaminated supplements?
John, do you want to take this, or do you want me to take this?
I mean, I could offer some opinions about it. So while it appears to be very European, I think there's some commonality between what's going on in all the markets, in that regulatory bodies are very financially strapped. They're short on money to actually enforce the regulations. So I think that while every country has regulations, and while they're slightly different, I think if all countries enforce them, I think we would see a lot different outcome in the market as far as contaminated products out there, because there are 2 different things in my mind that are going on. There is just contaminated products, which is inadvertent companies are buying materials that are ingredients for the products that have been manufactured, and a manufactured facility also manufactures drugs or these substances, and they get in there inadvertently. And then there's also the instances where companies are just blatantly ignoring the regulations and putting prohibited substances in their products. So we have 2 different things. I think if regulatory bodies are out there enforcing regulations, at least would eliminate the second part where it's intentionally in a product. And I think potentially even the first part would have impact on it, because then people who are manufacturing ingredients like that, their supply chain, their supply sources is very limited. Maybe it's not as lucrative, so they would stop doing it.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for today, John, you talked about the research that Jorge already said about that 5 of 24 products were not labeled accurately. I'm sure there are a lot of research studies out there that are revealing how many products can be contaminated. And we have the question here if you think that contamination of sport supplements is either accidentally, or if it happens on purpose? And if so, if you think it's happened on purpose, what do you think can be prevention, prevention procedures?
So I think that, though I think some of it's accidental, I do think some of it is purposely mislabeling products and putting ingredients in there. One, because they know they have a high pharmacological activity, so they know products work, and they know that they're that athletes in general, or even general consumers, so they're different consumers that are at risk. Athletes, people who want to lose weight, people are willing to take additional risks to increase their performance or improve their life, or whatever the case may be. So, so what I think is going on is that it just if the bodies would actually enforce the regulations, I think that would go a tremendous way to getting these products off the market. Now, it's not every manufacturer. If you look at our papers, you see a lot of commonalities between the vendors that are engaging in this behavior intentionally. That I think that in my mind, that's a small proportion of what's going on, but those have the brightest, flashiest websites. They sell on different vendors that will distribute worldwide. They seem to catch people's eye more so than going to some of the other websites that are less flashy. They're selling a broad base of supplements for health reasons.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe just one last very short question here that got in. Are you able to estimate the prevalence of supplement contamination? Is that even possible, or maybe at least in the United States?
I wish there was a good answer to that. It's just no. I mean, so I think if you look at worldwide, so within the United States, it's estimated there are over 55,000 different supplement products on the market. But I don't even know if there's been put out an estimate in the EU or Australia or any other jurisdictions, that regulatory jurisdictions, that they're sold. And without knowing that denominator, how many are sold, we don't even have a good handle on adulteration. So on the studies we do, it's such a small snapshot. I mean, for instance, on hygienamine, we just searched for products that had hygienamine in them, and you can see in the U.S. we only came up with 29 products. So things of this nature, I think, is small as compared to the market as a whole, but it's for the sporting people is really focused, because that's what these are the products that they would potentially buy, because they're hitting the marketing tricks that will get people in the doors to buy those products. Like, it'll help you lose weight, it will help pump you up for your workout, things like that. Those kinds of keys that really trigger someone to make a purchase, especially for people.
I'll jump in, Jorge, just real quick on that. I mean, I would dare say that there isn't an accurate number, but there is a problem that is very apparent. It should be very apparent to everyone globally, that there are a lot of potential for contamination out there in not just dietary supplements, but also in foods now. SARMs, in the existence of SARMs in recent years, and what that exposure has been, manufacturing practices. You know, these facilities are not just making dietary supplements anymore. They also are, dabbling in functional foods, food facilities. These contract manufacturing facilities are manufacturing many different types of products, and the supply chain has been an issue and will continue to be an issue, as John alluded to, because of the lack of regulation and oversight in throughout the supply chain throughout the world. So this is something that is a problem that's not going away, that we just have to find ways of mitigating that risk and dealing with ways to improve that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, gentlemen. John, Brian, thank you very much for doing this today. I also thank the audience for staying with us. Thank all members also logging in from very distant locations in Asia and Japan, for instance. The recording of the webinar will be made available in the next couple of days, and the PowerPoint slides as well. So, if you're not a member of INADO, you want to listen to the webinar again or see the slides, send us an email and we'll make those available to you too. Other than that, I wish everyone a wonderful day and stay optimistic. Thank you, John. Thank you, Brian. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.